Okay, so first things first, we're going to need to measure the head tube of our bike. Now it's really important, this process, because if your head tube length is too long, you're not going to be compatible with a lefty. And so the measurement we're looking for is that distance there, 137.5 mil. And as long as your headset and head tube combined length is less than that, then you'll be okay to use the regular lefty. If your head tube length is longer than 137.5 mils and less than 163 mil, we can use what they call the extra tall lefty. So we're going to do a measurement. Make sure you don't forget to include the crown race and your top cover for your headset. And this one measures about 113 centimetres, so we're well within the 137.5 mils. So tonight we are going to install a 2012 model carbon lefty XLR, already for 2090 use with 90 mils travel. And you'll see here that it's going to fit just nicely. Okay, so let's leftify the BMC.
Oh, devil, you may be a handsome one, but you going to tell lies.
That should allow us to drop the Fox fork out, make room for the new lefty love.
To the sky.
Okay, so today we're using the original headset that actually comes standard in this bike. This one is a 1 1/8 top and a 1.5 internal bearing lower. We're going to use a Project 3-to-1 tapered steerer. It doesn't look tapered, but it has a provision for a tapered bearing down on the bottom, and that's how ours is going to run, with our bearing on top and with the lefty enclosed around the outside. So first up, we're going to actually do basically a dry run. We're going to put the lefty on. We're going to measure where we need to cut our steerer in order to give the whole headset the right amount of compression. Okay, so for our dry run, we do need to use everything that you would normally be using as part of the conversion. So you need to include all your headset spacers, your stem, everything, because otherwise you don't want to end up cutting your steerer on the short side. Now this part can be a little bit fiddly, but you need to hold your lefty over the frame exactly how it's going to go on. Then your steerer goes in. Now this process, if you can hold your steerer or get someone to help hold your steerer, you just need to slide your crown race and your lower bearing over the top there, just as it would sit in the frame, and then slide. So now you can see the lefty's on. We do have a reasonable gap there. So we're going to fill that with the spacers from beforehand. And finally, our second Project 3-to-1 spacer will sit on top there. On this particular build, because it's a 29er, the lefty actually doesn't have a higher axle to crown, but it does have a higher handlebar height position. So because of that, we're going to be running a 17-degree negative stem, which will help bring that front end height just down a little bit. So you can't actually go any shorter than 90 mil, otherwise you'll find that your handlebars are actually going to hit the lefty fork there. So now that we have all of our components on there, we're going to measure where we're going to cut the steerer. So let's measure it exactly where we're going to need to cut. Now I'm just going to do just a little marking. Of course we are actually going to cut below that line, a couple of mils underneath your stem, so the top cap of your headset will pull it all down nice and tight. So now we need to deassemble everything again, so we can do the actual cut. So we're going to put it into our tube cutting guide, which is a vice mounted style. So now that we've cut the excess off the steerer, I'm just going to neaten up the cut on the steerer by sliding it just through the cutting guide and then rotating it vertically in our vise, which will allow us to look at it from the side on and give it a nice straight finish up using a good file. Just trim it around the edges. You want to remove any edge on the inside as well, because we need to put the stern up down through the steerer. Okay, so now we're ready to commit with the Lefty. We have our steerer all ready to go. We're just going to give it a light coating of grease just around that bearing surface there. The headset itself is all nicely ready greased, so we're ready to go. So we've got our lower bearings stuck in the frame there. Place your crown race over there and just thread your Project 3-to-1 steerer up through all the way. And you want it to sit nice and flush on the bottom down here. You don't want any of that gap down the bottom there. So next up, we're going to put our headset spacers back on. Finally, our Project 3-to-1 top spacer. Okay, so lastly, we're going to put on our stem. And don't forget your top cap for the headset. And now I can press it all down. Okay, so first things first, we need to just check that our bottom of the steerer is sitting nice and flush with the bottom clamp of the Lefty, which it is, which means our bottom Lefty bolt is ready to tighten up. Now we will put a proper torque setting of 6 Newton meters through that bolt later on, but just for the setup process, we'll just leave it just hand tight. Okay, so it's time to now fix the handlebar and get the cockpit all set up and ready. So at this point now you can fiddle around with how you want the hose to come out of your hydraulic lockout lever. So for this particular setup, we're going to move it so it's facing inwards towards the handlebar clamp, and then that should allow us to run it that way without a kink. You don't want any tight kinks on that cable, otherwise you run the risk of doing damage to the actual lockout cable. But now that's pretty much ready to have the front wheel installed, and then once the front wheel's on there, we'll then tighten up all the bolts and get it all ready for riding and nice and safe. So let's put our Lefty wheel on. We're running a post mount caliper on our Fox fork. Now we need to swap this mount actually over to a international standard mount, which will suit the Lefty mount clamps. Using the little clips on the Lefty, clip those into place and tighten up the caliper. There you go, that's me done.